All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today. I know everybody's busy, so taking some time to join the webinar really does mean a lot to, I know, both Fox Valley Metrology and Wenzel. So we're about ready to get started. We're going to talk today about preventative maintenance on your CMMs and how to increase the longevity of such a big investment. These machines are not cheap, so taking the proper precautions in order to extend the longevity of your CMM is going to go a long way. First off, I'm Josh Weimer. I am the Director of Capital Equipment Sales here at Fox Valley Metrology. I've been working for Fox Valley for about 12 years. Done pretty much everything here at Fox Valley as it comes to cleaning gauges. I was a technician for 9 years. Most recently, I was in the dimensional inspection lab performing inspections. And recently, I've moved into a little bit more of the sales role, selling the equipment that I used to work on every single day. So I have a very firm knowledge base of how these machines work and what they do. If you don't know anything about Fox Valley Metrology, we are a ISO 17025 accredited lab. We specialize in calibration. Anything measurement related that you may have that needs calibration, we can probably do it, or we can find somebody that can if we physically cannot. We also do repair on your tools, and we also do some equipment sales. So if you have anything that needs to be fixed, if you have anything you're looking for, you can feel free to reach out to me directly, and I will be able to get you in touch with somebody who will be able to help you. We've been in business for 26 years, 5 locations nationwide, headquartered right here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. That's where I'm located. We also have a location in Stacy, Minnesota, one in Fenton, Missouri, Rockford, Illinois, and right outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. Something that I just kind of find important here is Fox Valley Metrology has a Wenzel XO87 in our lab. We really trust the Wenzel machine. They build the best frames in the business, if you ask me. We love their accuracy and their repeatability. They're family-based too, so that goes a long way resonating with Fox Valley Metrology and Wenzel's family-oriented company values, basically. So if you don't know anything about Wenzel, they are the world's largest family-owned metrology company, based out of Wiestal, Germany. I hope to get there someday. I haven't yet. But I have been to their North American office in Wixom, Michigan. They specialize in highly accurate, versatile CMMs. They're customizable. So anything that you may need, if you need a little bit extra length in the y-axis, they can customize it for you. All industries. So if you need, something contact and non-contact technology, they can do it. Internal and external measurement, they can do it. They make machines for controlled lab environments, similar to what we have here at Fox Valley, but they also are versatile enough where they can put a machine out on the shop floor. So something portable that you can literally pick up with a pallet jack, move it wherever you need to, plug it in. Doesn't need air. So very, very versatile machines. A little bit of housekeeping. If you notice here on the left side, there's a Q&A box. If you have any questions that pop up during this webinar, feel free to reach out. Type it in the Q&A box. We'll be able to try to address those at the end. If you want to go ahead and type in there now to test it out, let me know what kind of industry you guys are working in. Just gives me a little bit of help knowing where you guys are coming from. This webinar is being recorded. So if you know somebody that wasn't able to join today, or you want to rewatch this, get some more information, you want to send it off to some of your friends that may be able to get some valued information out of this, you'll get a link right at the end of the webinar in your email that you'll be able to take and send to somebody else. Both Steve Meek, who will be presenting with me, and myself will have our contact info that pops up right at the end. If you happen to have any questions after the fact, or you just don't want to type in the Q&A box, you can feel free to reach out to Steve or myself. If you have anything measurement related, any calibration questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. We are also going to be touching base on next month's webinar, which is going to be featuring our brand new customer referral program. I'll touch a little bit more about it later, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. We are going to be jumping right into customer referral, which is a big thing for Fox Valley Metrology, something we've been working on for a long time. So next month's webinar will be devoted to that. So with that being said, I think we're about ready to go. I see Steve Meek has joined me and now disappeared again. Steve Meek is the National Sales Manager of Aftermarket and Service. So welcome, Steve.
Hey, thanks, Josh. Nice to be here. Thanks for hosting us again. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. We're excited to present some information to you. and we hope that you find it interesting because we think it's very helpful toward maintaining your CMM and keeping you guys running efficiently.
Sounds great. If you don't have anything else, I think we're ready to just kind of jump into it.
Let's do it.
All right. So we're going to start out here. This is what we're going to go through today. So we're going to talk about why preventative maintenance is important, what types of preventative maintenance you should be doing, how often to do it, what to clean, how to clean it, what to use, what does Wenzel do when you bring them in for a preventative maintenance, and then we're going to touch a bit on the probe calibration side of it. So Steve, why don't you touch on why preventative maintenance is important to begin with?
Okay, great. So preventive maintenance is a very important part of owning a CMM. Realistically, it's the easiest and the quickest way to reduce your potential downtimes and limit unexpected service visits. You know, when, like you said earlier, when we're getting into the CMM market, you spend a ton of time researching the best makes, models, technology. Chances are you're committed to making a sizable investment to bring a CMM into the facility. So taking the time to learn how to properly take care of your CMM is really the best way to protect your investment. And the reality is most of our customers are on 12-month calibration cycles. That's a very long time between scheduled service. So performing routine PM in between visits is a smart and cost-effective way to ensure your CMM is running smoothly and performing optimally throughout the year. I like to think of it in the same way that you would take care of your car by rotating the tires, changing the oil, fluids. You know, these small but preventative habits help tremendously to maximize the longevity of your machine.
Sure. I know I've heard you talk about it, you know, a number of times. You know, Wenzel tells me you take care of your CMM, CMM's going to take care of you. So that kind of resonates here at Fox Valley Metrology. Take care of your equipment. It's expensive stuff. You know, you want it to last a long time.
Absolutely.
So what would be the most important parts on your CMM that you should be doing preventative maintenance on?
Good question. So all areas in the CMM are going to be important, but the first four that I like to focus on, kind of right front and center, will be your air, your granite, your styli, and your wear components. And we'll get started with the air. So aside from some select shop floor models, all CMMs require clean air to function. And by ISO standards, Wenzel CMMs require class 4 compressed air. If you want more information on this, we can send out data sheets after. But basically what we're looking for is to make sure that the shop air supply is as clean as possible before it gets to the CMM air filtration system. And the two biggest concerns, the two biggest things we're worried about here that cause the most issues will be moisture and oil that can get into the lines and overwhelm your CMM filters and eventually cause longer term headaches and expenses. Effectively filtering these out will help improve the lifespan of your filters, the regulators, and just your CMM in general. And then the second part is granite. It's a little bit more straightforward. We simply want to protect the granite from any dirt, dust, or potentially abrasive materials. And the same concept holds true for styli. Styli tips are really the first line of defense, if you will, being the one component that is directly between your workpiece and your CMM. So keeping these clean and in good working condition can literally be the difference between good and bad measurements or determining whether your part passes inspection. So we'll touch on how we take care of these in a little bit more detail later on. But lastly, rounding out the fourth area would be the wear components. And by this, I mean some of the smaller background components that we aren't often thinking about when we're talking CMMs, like your belts, your motors, your filters, and so on. You know, parts of your CMM that can get dirty or wear over the course of time. It's very important to keep an eye on these as best we can to prevent any unplanned downtimes or that may impact your production.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. Could you maybe touch on how often these kind of preventative maintenance should be done?
Yeah, so that's a great question. There's no real cut and dry right answer with this, other than PM should be considered and performed as reasonably possible given your usage and your environmental conditions. And what I mean by this is if you're in a controlled lab, Josh, like if you're at the Fox building and you guys have a nice clean lab without heavy dust, oil, moisture in the air, or if you're just running one shift per day type thing. We don't expect PM to be performed every day or every shift or every hour or anything like that. But certainly once a week is a really good, healthy routine for the majority of users. Now, on the other hand, I say that, but if your environment is a bit more unstable, or if you're on the shop floor, especially, running multiple shifts, have other variables to consider, daily basis or may not be out of the question. We do have a ton of customers who clean their granite and styli much more frequently, before or after every shift. But the good news with this is we're not talking about long, elaborate routines. The process usually only takes a couple of minutes, and you certainly don't have to run through the entire list every time. For example, maybe you're running one part for the day for the shift, and you're only using a couple of styli within that program. Just clean off what you're using for the day and then tackle tomorrow's PM tomorrow, right? But that said, if you ever wanted a second opinion or you're really unsure, feel free to reach out to Josh and I. We'd be happy to talk with you about best practices and frequencies for your particular situation.
Absolutely. I think we've got a whole bunch of CMM owners in here, maybe some potential CMM owners. Can you maybe explain what kinds of maintenance that CMM owners should be doing on their own and why it would be important to do these things?
Yes, thank you for asking. Another great question. So for starters, we've talked about granite and styli a bit so far. Every CMM owner can and should have their own in-house procedure for these items. For the granite, the cleaning process is very simple, very easy. It's a lot like how you'd maintain your kitchen countertops at home, or the wax on, wax off Mr. Miyagi method for our Karate Kid fans out there. For granite, there are dedicated cleaning solutions available. They're usually just a mixture of soap and water. So those are out there for you, but sometimes we find that these can leave like a thin, like a soapy residue on the granite. So we just recommend using a denatured alcohol with a lint-free terry cloth for these. We keep it simple, right? We just want to make sure that we're being cautious not to oversaturate the granite, or that we're not using any potentially abrasive materials that could scratch or damage the granite in the process, right? That's the last thing we want to do. Now, again, similar concept for styli. Denatured alcohol works just fine for these. We just want to make sure we're not going to use anything too sticky or abrasive when cleaning Stylus, because it could damage the tip or negatively impact your measurements, which is, again, last thing that we want. At our facility in Wixom, we find it's easiest to leave a box of Kim wipes nearby and clean them by hand as needed. Or we can also do this in a more automated fashion using our Wenzel Stylus cleaner. It mounts right to the CMM and it can run right as part of your inspection program.
Sure. We go through and we clean our stuff here very regularly. Obviously, here at Fox, we're, kind of held to a different standard than a lot of other, labs maybe. But making sure that everything is wiped down and clean before we start taking measurements on some customer equipment is that means a lot. Customers kind of expect that out of us. Can you maybe touch on how frequently the CMM cleaning should be done?
Yes. So like I said before, it's going to depend a little bit on your situation. Key factors will be usage, environment, types of accuracies you're holding, and even the types of parts that you're measuring will factor into this equation. So some customers may need to do this more frequently than others. If you're experiencing any excess dirt on the granite, potential remains or grease from your workpiece, or especially if you're seeing material wear or buildup on their tips, which could lead to inaccurate measurements, you might need to do it more often. But a general rule of thumb is once a week is a great start. But I always say if you're on the fence, or if you think that you might need to do it a little bit more often, just go ahead and do it, right? Even a little bit here and there will go a long way, and it's not going to take you too long. Like you said earlier, Josh, take care of your CMM and your CMM will take care of you. That holds true. Cleaning a couple of styli here and there, or wiping down your granite, at least on the outboard, sections, goes a long way.
Sure. Yeah, you touched a little bit earlier on that Stylus cleaner that you guys have. I've got a little video that I'd kind of like to show, but can you maybe touch a little bit more on what that is?
Yeah, so this is an add-on product. It's an efficiency tool that we sell actively with our machines to better assist with cleaning and promote more consistent PM in general. But as you'll see in the video, the Stylus cleaner, it sits right on the granite table and it runs fully automated. There's a nice canned routine where the probe head will pull the styli right from the rack. It runs it through the entry port of the cleaner where a small sensor signals the styli is in place and it dips it right down into the cleaning port. Once it's in the port, it activates the cleaner and it uses a mixture of compressed air and denatured alcohol to blow off any dirt and debris that might have collected on your styli over time. And you can set this up to run literally any time that you want. You know, before your programs, after your programs, during your part inspection, if it's a longer program. You know, our customers have really enjoyed using it this far, taking some of the manual labor out of the equation.
Yeah, it's a really cool product. Something I didn't even know was out there until we started diving into the the PMs a little bit more. So it's really cool to kind of see it being in use and even just know about it. So now, what about calibrating these probes? Is this something that should be considered preventative maintenance as well? And maybe how often should a customer be calibrating their probes?
Yeah, probe calibration is an afterthought a lot of times when you're looking into CMMs, but it's a really nice way to effectively manage your system as well as some of these other PM habits. So the majority of our customers, Josh, calibrate the probes on a weekly basis. I think you guys are a little bit more regular, I think daily. But because it needs to happen daily, it's kind of one of the secondary advantages you'll hear us talking about a lot with 5-axis probing technology in your CMM. Right, the calibration cycles are just much more efficient with 5-axis probing. So if you're running this daily or weekly, there's little time savings opportunities that kind of get built into your machine.
Sure. And how long does a 5-axis calibration take compared to a 3-axis calibration?
Somewhat of a loaded question because it's going to depend on a lot, right? So how many different tips, angles are built into your probing configuration, your machine approach and retract speeds. These types of things come into play. But in general, you can calibrate a 5-axis PH20 or a Revo in about half the time you can in a 3-axis PH10 or similar. And the reason being is with the 3-axis system, you have to calibrate each and every indexing angle for every probe build out that you have, which takes about 20 to 30 seconds per angle. So, and for PH10, for example, it's limited to 7.5 degrees of indexing. So if your program's lengthy with various vectors, if you have multiple build outs, or if you're calibrating all the angles up front as part of your procedure, it can take quite a bit of time. Whereas the 5-axis system, like the PH20 that you guys have in the lab, which infinitely indexes, so you get every angle, takes about 7 to 8 minutes for each probe build out to run. It's full cal routine, but then every angle is calibrated and ready for you guys to use. So generally that takes about half the time. So
Yeah,
it's savings.
We here at Fox Valley, I mean, we calibrate our tips every morning when we get here. That's our first thing that we do, just to make sure that everything's running, nothing's been damaged since the previous day. But the cal procedure on the Wenzel does take significantly less time with the 5-axis head than it does some of the other machines that we may have with the 3-axis that have to go and program every single angle. Some of those we have 20, 30 different angles in. Those can be an hour-long plus calibration procedure. So cutting that time in half or double half the time, it's goes a long way to us being able to get more throughput and get more parts measured. So can you maybe touch a little bit on what else on the machine might be clean or should be cleaned or monitored? Talk a little bit about how each of these is done.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've already covered air, granite, styli, and some of the wear components. The other kind of the next wave of areas that we want to keep an eye on are scales, filters, your calibration sphere, and your touch probes. And we'll start by talking through some of the scales. These require a little bit more attention to detail because they can be delicate if they're not cleaned correctly. And they are relatively expensive to replace. So we'll start off with a few common misconceptions we see. we'll see a lot of customers blasting the scales with the shop air, the compressed air, to remove some of the dust or debris that might collect on there over time. We see it happening a decent amount, and it will eventually cause serious damage to not only the scale, but the encoder and the reader head as well. And these are not cheap, and they require service visits to replace. And another bad habit we use is, we mentioned denatured alcohol earlier, which is great for some areas. We do not want to use denatured alcohol on scales. This will actually remove the lacquer right from the scale, which presents other challenges and usually requires a scale replacement. Instead, the proper method for scales is to use isopropyl alcohol, preferably at 90% or higher, with a non-abrasive wipe. Lint-free terry cloth, something like that would work fine. But equally as important to what you use is how we're actually using it. The cleaning method for these is critical. Scales should be cleaned by wiping in a perpendicular fashion. So if your scale runs north and south, you should be cleaning this in a east and west fashion. Because running the wipe parallel with the scale will actually cause damage by creating unwanted etchings, which will false trigger and cause problems down the road. So next on that list, we talked about filters. So earlier we mentioned the best PM is making sure the air is clean before it gets to the filtration system. That's ideal, but a visual check on a weekly or even monthly basis is also recommended. It's a good sign your filters may need to be changed if you notice discoloration, dirt, or any contaminant buildup. But realistically, these should be swapped out annually during your regularly scheduled calibration. And if it becomes more of a concern internally, or if your service provider, thinks that you might need a little bit more work here, a little bit more attention, you can also add air dryers to your system. It's another option to consider, and these will help filter out oil and moisture that we really want to pay attention to. And then calibration spheres. Everyone has them. A lot of times we see them sitting on the table, which is fine. But the best PM for these is to store these away in a protective case because it keeps them safe and out of harm's way. Now, I know that's not always realistic. We do have a ton of customers keep them right there fixed on the table, us included a lot of times. And for these scenarios, we recommend cleaning these with either isopropyl alcohol or denatured alcohol. And there are also dedicated calibration sphere cleaning kits if you prefer to go that route, but not needed if you have some of these other things in-house. And then last but certainly not least are the touch probes. We're using these regularly with every inspection, so that they're crucial. Like the CalSphere, your TP20s and TP200s, they also have dedicated cleaning kits available. They're relatively cheap. Usually you can get a couple kits for less than $100, and they'll last for various cleanings. But at Wenzel, we commonly use, it's a specialized putty strip to clean our touch probes. We just find that these work great for not only the contact surfaces on like the touch probes, but for also getting any small dust or residue that might have built up on the magnetic components on these. So that's kind of our go-to for that. But they're cheap, it's inexpensive, and we do it regularly.
Sure. I know here at Fox Valley, we keep our calibration sphere on the granite the entire time, unless we have a part that's big where we need to move it.
Yep.
But we make sure that it gets wiped down every time before we use it, just in case there is any dust or debris that's going to throw our measurements off. And we have several damaged touch probes here as well that we had to throw out because they weren't taken care of properly.
It's going to happen.
So just being able to make sure that you can take care of them, you don't have to purchase those as often, is going to go a long way. So Steve, we had talked kind of about what an individual can do on their own in between these Wenzel preventative maintenance cycles. Can you maybe touch on what Wenzel actually does do when you come and bring them in?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because we focus heavily on PM activities when our service techs are there. With all of our calibrations, our service techs are performing a number of things. And this is one of the major reasons I recommend an OEM calibration at a minimum every other or every third year. I don't want to interrupt. There's a lot of third-party service providers, and a lot of people have close relationships with people like yourself, Fox. You guys do a great job at servicing your customers, and we don't want to interrupt that. But there is a value to having, us out to service our machines every third year. Like in addition to the gauge blocks or the laser calibration that we provide, we're essentially running a full diagnostic on the machine and checking on those wear components that we mentioned earlier. So with every calibration, what we do is we go through the checklist and we remove the machine covers and we clean all of the drive surfaces, the rails, and the motors. We clean and realign the scales and the reader heads. We are checking volume on all of your air bearings. We're checking machine squareness. We're replacing the filters, like we talked about earlier. And then we also do a full belt replacement services. There's drive belts on every one of the machines, on our machines. They're the yellow, looks like a poly belt. And we are rotating these out with new belts because we know that the old ones are going to get dirty, they're going to get worn, and need to be changed out proactively because they can cause a bigger issue down the road. So these activities with, in addition to what our customers are doing regularly for PM on their own, it really, really goes a long way to ensuring our CMMs are running efficiently and are keeping our customers happy throughout the year.
Yeah, you can kind of see the yellow belt that you were referring to on the picture, over there on the right. When I was in the lab, it was something that I was never really confident or comfortable doing, is taking these covers off and, digging into, the inner workings of these CMMs. It's an expensive machine, and the last thing I wanted to do was be responsible for touching something that I wasn't supposed to. So being able to have that knowledge of what to do, what not to do, kind of goes a long way. Just keeping your machine in the best working shape that you can on a daily basis, and then letting the experts do what they need to do when they come. So, oops, I missed a couple. So I think that kind of wraps up, unless you have anything else that you wanted to touch on. I think we can kind of jump into what Wenzel has agreed to work on as it comes to a promo for those people that are in attendance today. So Wenzel has agreed to go ahead and give 15% off of that Stylus cleaner that we had talked about a little bit earlier through the end of Q2. So through the end of June, if anybody's interested, we'll have a redirect page right at the end of the webinar that'll allow you to click and get a hold of me or Steve directly, and we can get you a quote with this promo included. But if anybody else has any questions, I see one more popped up over there. If anybody has any other questions, if you want to take this time to type those in. I have one more video from our good friend Mariano about this Stylus cleaner that may be of a little bit of interest as it comes to how it actually works. So take this time to ask your last final questions, and here's Mariano.
Hi everyone, Mariano here with another Tuesday Tech Tip. When it comes to Stylus care, you want to make sure to use denatured alcohol and a lint-free cloth such as a skin wipe to keep lint and other grime off your Stylus tips. Haven't changed your stylight in forever, then it becomes even more crucial to take care of your stylight, which is why you might actually use a Stylus cleaner such as this one, which you can build into your process so that it cleans your stylight maybe before each calibration for maximum results. Wipes can be a thing of the past. If you want more tips, make sure to smash that like button and share this video. See you next time.
So that's Mariano. He does these tech tips every Tuesday on Wenzel's social media. So Steve, if you want to, maybe touch base on that a little bit. Something I every week. So
I appreciate you showing those, Josh. If you like these types of videos and you just want a little bit more information, our marketing team does a great job. And like the video you saw here with Mariano on there, he puts together tech tip videos. They come out almost every Tuesday, but pretty faithfully on Tuesdays. And they're just little tips that we've kind of talked about today about how to do little things or work around the CMM and kind of get yourself a little bit more familiar. They're great. We're posting them on LinkedIn and Facebook. So go ahead and give us a follow if this is kind of interesting to you. We think it's very helpful, and appreciate you giving us a little plug there, Josh.
Yeah, Mariano does a great job. I know Karen, really helps him out, and they put some good stuff out there. It's something I look forward to every week. And like you mentioned, social media is such a great way to stay in tune with what's going on. So, make sure you guys like and follow Wenzel, Fox Valley Metrology. We got some really big stuff coming out in the future as it comes to this referral program. So make sure you follow Fox Valley Metrology. You can follow myself, follow Steve on LinkedIn. We'll get you some good information. I do see a couple of questions that popped up here, Steve, so maybe we can take a second to address some of these. Looks like Paul has asked if the probe cleaner works on machines other than Wenzel.
Yes, it does. It works. You can really program the Stylus cleaner to work with any machine. It doesn't have to necessarily be a Wenzel. It does work great with our machine controller and software. But if you had a non-Wenzel and you wanted to add a Stylus cleaner, you could. You would just have to write the program for your probe head to pick up the styli and locate the rack accordingly. But these are not exclusive to our machines. It's our product, but you could use it with something else. Yep.
Good. And then Caitlin had asked about using acetone to clean the scales.
Caitlin, great question. Nice to hear from you. If I would have to see what version you're using, we strongly recommend isopropyl alcohol. Acetone might have some other negative reaction with the scale. If we want to talk offline about what specifically you're using, I could answer that more directly. Recommended will always be using an IPA for scales. We know that works best, and it will not remove lacquer from the scale, which I don't know that other alcohols or other variations of solutions will not have the same result. So,
okay. I don't believe that I see anything else. So I did want to take one more minute to talk about our Fox Valley Metrology referral program. It's something that it's brand new to us. We're really, really excited about it. You guys have been referring our services, particularly, the calibration side, for years. And now it's, kind of time for Fox Valley to pay it forward. So March 14th, we're actually launching our customer referral program. It'll give you the opportunity to earn $100 for every customer that you refer to us. So all you'll need to do is refer a friend or colleague. Fox Valley Metrology will take care of the rest. So kind of like I said, stay tuned to your email, stay tuned to our LinkedIn for more information as that launches next month. That seems like all the questions we've got. So, unless you've got anything else, Steve?
The one question I had, Josh, is just for my own sake. We talked a lot about PM on a CMM. Is there anything that you guys are doing for PM on smaller things that your customers might want to know about for hand tools and other things like that?
Yeah, we get a lot of gauges into Fox Valley Metrology for calibration. So protecting them in shipment is a big deal. You see some of these freight carriers nowadays aren't the most careful with things. There's horror videos out there of things getting delivered to houses and people just throwing stuff. Don't trust these carriers. Protect it yourself. The stuff is expensive. Some of the high-end electronics equipment that comes in, make sure it's wrapped properly. Make sure everything is wiped down. Dust and water can be a cancer to some of this high-end electronics equipment. So just make sure that you're protecting it when you can. Torque wrenches, stuff like that, put it back in the case. All your hand tools come with the case. Make sure it's put back in, put in your toolbox. You don't want to trust anything to being dropped. These thread gauges are highly accurate when they come in. So a chip on a thread plug may really throw a lot of things off. Just wiping them down, a little brush, cleaning out all the debris, things like that you can just spray them with, a denatured alcohol, wipe them down, just keeping everything clean. Put it away. Somebody knocks it off your desk, knocks it off your bench. You got an expensive replacement coming. So that's what we have, as a best recommendation. Just protect it. Keep everything clean. Dust and water can cause some damage to it. So,
thank you, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one more. Let's see. PM on height gauges. If you want to reach out to me directly with that PM, I'll have to get in touch with Tom Dorn, who's one of our sales managers here. He has a lot to do with the PMs on height gauges themselves and what to wipe them down with. So I'll be able to get in touch with you, or you should get in touch with me, and I'll be able to answer that question for you as it goes forward. So if anybody else has anything, shoot me a message. Here's the information for Steve and myself. If you have anything, relating to Wenzel products, feel free to reach out to Steve. If you're interested in looking into a Wenzel CMM, You can reach out to myself directly, any calibration that you may need, any other equipment repair. There's my cell phone number and my email address. Shoot me a message, shoot me an email. My phone's always on. So again, I'd like to thank you guys for your time today. I know everybody's busy, so taking half an hour, 45 minutes to join us today really does mean a lot to Wenzel. It means a lot to Fox Valley Metrology. At the end here, you'll be redirected to that page. If you are interested in that Stylus cleaner, you can click the link. You'll be able to get a hold of me directly, and we'll get you a quote on that. So again, thank you for your time today. Steve, thank you for your presentation today. I think everybody learned a lot. That's it. So thank you guys again. We'll be in touch. Have a great day.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, everyone.